with open heart surgery came blood transfusion. And I didn't know this until then, but you can only donate a certain amount of blood per human for a transfusion. Well, I didn't want him to get community blood. And so I had to petition. It was actually the first time I've gone before a board. I had to petition to the Blood and Tissue Board to allow them to let me take more blood product from my body than the normal allowance so that my blood product would be what was put in him.
It's the Fit for Radio podcast, and I'm your host, Drew Titeman, here at the Stafford Hills Club, a beautiful facility located in Tualatin, Oregon, voted the #1 health and wellness facility in all of the Portland area. And when you get here, you can see it. The people are fun. They're happy. They want to see you. They know your name. It's not like gyms where you get there and they want your membership fee and they never want to see you again. It's a family. Bring your family. Make new family here. Come check them out at staffordhills.com and hit me up or tell them I sent you for half off your initiation. Today, my guest is an amazing lady. She has done it all, really, and has so much more to give, navigating the waters from thriving in high-level corporate leadership to navigating Olympic dreams and Navy deployments, homeschooling, and even some serious medical challenges at home and as a parent. I promise you that isn't lost on me. That is one of the toughest things to deal with. And she does it all with grace and with walking right into the wind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Nikole Vaughn.
Hi, thank you for having me, Drew.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And you're a perfect example of strength and, overcoming the odds. We talk on this show all the time about how it really isn't about what happens to you that writes your story. It's how you react to the things that happen to you. And you are a perfect testament to that. Multiple people calling you an innovator and a community builder. And really, when you and I had our initial meeting on the phone, I felt a presence of a strong person and somebody who can overcome some adversity. Now, I wonder if some of that comes from your upbringing, because you were kind of thrust into, I won't put words in your mouth, it feels like an adult role for me very early, because you had to initially move homes. What was it, 7 or 5 times, 7 times? How many times did you move?
Yeah, we moved 5 times, well, total of 8, because in one of the cities we moved 3 times. But yeah, 5 different cities. I was born in Carbondale, Illinois, little small town. And then my parents were divorced, so we moved to Austin, Texas. My mom met someone and was remarried within a year, so we moved to San Antonio, Texas. We moved 3 different homes there in San Antonio. Then we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and then Los Angeles, California.
So little
that was
bit of the
all
back.
by the time I was 7th grade, yeah.
Wow, by 7th grade. And, I moved once in 6th grade and it turned my world upside down. And I think I whined about it for 2 years. So very strong of you to get through that. And when you were growing up, you also had to deal with, your mom was dealing with some medical issues that forced you into more of an adult role as well, right?
Yeah, interestingly enough, when we moved from Illinois to Texas, she was just divorced. We were actually on government assistance. I didn't know it because we would eat on the ground on a tablecloth, but she called it a picnic. So she was really good at building resilience for me. But then once she remarried and we moved to San Antonio, she had a grand mal seizure and ran into the football stadium of UT Austin. And from then on, from the time I was 4 to the time I was 16 years old, she could no longer drive or work. And there were times where she would have seizures and I was the one around to help work through that. I remember one time it happened at a mall. We were at the mall in Atlanta, Georgia. And at the time I was in 5th grade, the back half of 5th grade, and I had to explain to security that I got it. I'm good. I got it. And they just kept, because I'm a short person, you can't tell on the podcast, but I'm only 5'2" now as a full adult. So
Mm-hmm.
back then I was even shorter.
And they're
And
thinking this is a fifth grader. We're step aside and we're going to take care of this. But you knew what was going on.
yeah, so I learned quickly, I guess, as you alluded to, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had to mature pretty fast to um, be able to navigate those waters, help her, and make sure that she was always seen in the role of of my mother, right? Always seen as the authority, but also help her at the same time. And then, try to live a kid's life. But then once we moved to Los Angeles, we were living in a location where, with her not driving and then my dad having to go to work, I was walking every day home from school. And again, didn't realize it until I grew older, but it was 2.8 miles, walking, which was an hour and 15-minute walk coming home. And then it's this steep incline. um I looked it up one day because I was just curious, and it's a 650-foot incline. So
Oh,
people do this now for recreation, like when they say they're going on a hike.
yeah.
But for me, I could not get home unless I climbed that hill. There was no transit system that went up into that hill, so I had to walk every day. And it was so much a part of my life that a neighbor of ours, because I guess I had lost a lot of weight from the walk, because I'm doing PE at school and then
Yeah.
walking
It's a lot of
home. And
steps.
yeah, and then up the incline, I had lost a ton of weight, and so she thought there was something going on with me, and and this is when my enterprise spirit was first revealed, because when they asked me, they found out that I was taking my lunch money instead of buying lunch. I was saving it so that I would have money
Yeah.
to do what I wanted to do. So I just wouldn't eat at school. I would wait till I got home, but then yet I was doing all that walking and running. And so I was just losing a ton of weight. But
Now, was that the beginning of that whole time with the seizures and then walking to school those distances? Was that the beginning of kind of like the hardening process where resilience kind of steps in? Or are you even thinking about it at that age, or you just think that's the normal behavior? Where is your head at?
Drew, yes, you're right. I never thought it was different from anything else because that was my life. Not until I was an adult and I went back to that area and drove around with my own kids and realized what my life was. Not until then did I think it was different. Back then, all I knew is school's over, you got to get home. I
Mm-hmm.
never questioned it. Um, and so, but I do think that helped create some of my resilience and my endurance, because there isn't much now that happens that causes me to stop. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I pause, but I rarely stop, because I just take things as this is how it is. This is how life works.
That's incredible to me. I mean, I've got 3 kids, and it's hard to get one of them to walk their plate into the kitchen, let alone walk miles to school every day. I can't get them to carry their own backpack to my car from a playground. So I it is very commendable what you're doing there. And then also, just to backtrack a little, I think that one of the thing that is so amazing about you is that when your mom has the seizure, the fifth grader has the composure to be able to
Mm.
sit in that. So, like, and we're going to get to some things about your life later that, I have a question that I'm going to circle back to about, are you afraid, or do you sometimes have to put on a face? And we'll get to that. But I wonder, just to touch on it with your mom, are you afraid when your mom is seizing, or are you confident that you have it?
No, I'm confident I have it. Drew, you're bringing up some things I had never considered, actually, as we're talking now. I never, in the moment, it was my time to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought twice. When the security guards came, I said, "Oh, no, I got it. I got it," because I was kind of conditioned that what's in our family, you keep in the family, you cover. So I
Mm-hmm.
was always taught love covers. So you don't display any issues or drama publicly. we got it. And so,
Yes.
when the security guards came, I was like, no, no, I got it. I got it. We're good. We're good. Trust me, I got it. And they're looking at me like, little girl, what are you talking about?
Which is funny though, because since it's your mom, you're kind of, I mean, you're not book smart about her issue, but you're educated on it. And these guys are two mall security guards, and not to paint them with a broad brush, but the guarantees that they know what to do with a seizure. I'm, if it's my mom, I might go with the fifth graders. So I think that because it was your thing, not just a random fifth grader in front of an Orange Julius, but
Right, right, right.
you. And that's amazing to me. Now, as you're walking all those distances, you already start taking leadership roles, though. Do you know early that you want to be in a leadership role, or you just kind of this thing happens and then this thing happens?
Yeah, it was just this thing and this thing. And actually, I never considered myself worthy of leadership. And it first came to bear when I was in middle school. There was an election. In middle school is the first time you have these officers of the class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked by one of the teachers, "Hey, why don't you run for president?" And there's no way I can run for president. I can't. I'm not. I cannot manage that responsibility. So they were confused because, Drew, like what you're recognizing is they were adult people, right? Interacting with me at that time in 8th grade, knowing what my life was, but I thought my life was normal, right? So when they're saying to me, you could be president, I'm saying there's no way I can't take on that responsibility because in my mind, I wasn't eligible. I wasn't able to lead anybody or
Mm-hmm.
have that type of role. So I went for vice president just so I could help out my friend.
And
But
did
I
you get it?
I did get vice president.
Nice. Nice.
Yes.
I was an officer at one point. I in sixth grade, it was sixth, seventh, and eighth, and they let you all you could be was sergeant at arms. And so I ran on a campaign that was just Druid. And it was like the early 90s. I had that Nike orange poster board, and I won on the term just Druid.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
I'm surprised I didn't get a cease and desist, but they let me use it, and we got the job done.
Yeah, I
Now,
love that.
when you're transitioning into schooling, when is it that you decide that school is going to be, because you take a pretty northbound trajectory at a point. At what point do you really lock into the whole schooling and higher education?
So it was never something that I thought was an option for me. So in the area that I grew up in, this is what you do. So even the kids that were bussed in from all over LA, our mindsets were you're going to college, some kind of college. And so it was never something where I said, okay, this is a goal of mine, and then I've got to do this, this, and this to get there. Just everything that I did was about getting to college. Now, I wanted to go to UC Berkeley, and my family at that time were moving back to Texas. And so um, my stepfather asked me to please consider Texas. And I said, no, I want to be at Berkeley. But then he had a discussion with me about finances.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen, if you come to Texas, if you get a job, it'll be spending money for you. And these things were topics that I understood, right? Because I started working when I was like 13, trying to babysit. Well, you heard me say earlier, I was saving my lunch money so I'd
Yeah.
have money. Then I was started babysitting to get money. Then when I turned 16, I got a job at a chicken place so that I could have money. So then now here I am, 17, and he's talking to me about finances and everybody's moving to Texas. If you stay in California, you will have to get a job. You will have to find a way to make it because it's just so much more expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was the real discussion of me. Okay, let me go to Texas so at least I'll have some support, a little bit of support.
Yeah, and it would allow you to use your lunch money on lunch because even to this
Correct.
day, there's no lunch in Los Angeles unless you're crushing it. So you choose UT Austin, right?
Correct.
Which if you're paying any attention, am I correct that this is the exact same place that your mom crashed the car into it?
Correct. Full circle moment.
Yeah. So don't tell me there's a little dent on the stadium there for you to remember it by.
There isn't, but yeah, and the car is totaled and gone, but you're right, Drew. It was a full circle moment. And so not only did she crash the car there, I was there and I met my husband there too at UT Austin. So full
Which it was
circle
all
moment.
destiny for you. If you don't listen to that conversation about finances, you never meet him, and it never happens that way.
That's right. Absolutely.
And I think those things are so important. We see that all the time where it's like we get disappointed by something because we want it to go directly down this street, and you got to picture how beautiful that's going to be, and you look over here and it looks like a shadier way, but just around a couple of turns is some sunshine and something that you desperately need. You just don't know it yet, right?
That's right, Drew. I really appreciate this conversation. You're bringing me back to some really good places in my life. I appreciate this.
You're listening to the Fit for Radio podcast, and of course, brought to you in part by Motorsport Hillsboro, because spring is here and the deals are on at Motorsport Hillsboro. Save up to 60% off on gas e-bikes because, of course, gas prices are going up, but the prices are going down at Motorsport Hillsboro. And if you're into good deals, how about $8,000 off MSRP on a Kawasaki Ridge side-by-side? It's all there right now. Go check them out today. There's a reason people come from far and wide to Motorsport Hillsboro to make their purchase for their off-road adventures come this summer. And of course, since the spring is here, the sky is blue. Let's get it. Motorsport Hillsboro, it's your spot. Stay rad, save gas. So when you meet your husband, is he in the military already, serving in the Navy, or is that something that happens while you two had already met?
Okay, so this guy, he was in the business school. So we were both in the business school at UT Austin. He was business school, ROTC, and track and field. So he was captain of the track team. So he was a busy dude.
And so is that the Olympic dream, was the running?
Yes, he wanted to run the 400 and the 800 in the Olympics. And so he was training for that while also having to serve. So once we graduated, he still had to serve his time in the military. And so after he would deploy and run on the ship because he was a surface warfare
Wow.
officer. And then sometimes they would allow him to go run meets when they were back in port. And then he negotiated for a surface job so that he could train with his coach and run.
That is a full
And
plate.
yeah, he actually was only 0.04 seconds from qualifying. And so he had to make a decision about whether or not he would continue with running or what we say become a regular guy. And so because we were married and he knew that we would have kids one day and the military requires a lot, the Navy requires a lot of away deployments. So he
Mm-hmm.
would be deployed plus gone for track. He chose to become a regular guy and and now he's a fintech executive. So it was
Which
good,
is
right?
cool, and those things are hard to let go of. It's the same thing with like a college football player, or you make it to the pros, and it's like, well, you can keep grinding. That grind requires every inch of your being and your motivation to get
That's
those
right.
things done. I interviewed this lady a few weeks ago, Liz, who she was trying to get on the Olympics in the marathon, and you're training and you're training and you're the sacrificing everything for your diet, and you're just it's minutes in marathons, but it's a millisecond, and
Correct.
it's just this fine little hair difference, and it seems obtainable, but it's so hard to hit that perfect optimization to get there.
Right. Especially if you're not willing to do things that are illegal. to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, there have been people who've been caught now, but at that time, people weren't caught. So he was actually competing against what we say superheroes that were, um,
Oh,
that he,
it's all documented. I mean, those
yeah,
the guys that he's running against, because I'm doing the math on the time because the Bill Clinton thing, so I'm circling back
yes,
in my head, and I mean, those
yes,
are the biggest names in the history of track and field, and a
absolutely.
bunch of them. You could look it up for yourself. Balco, the whole thing where the synthetic steroids and trying to manipulate the system. It's all in track and it's all right then. So I'm actually pretty
That's
glad
exactly.
for him that he decided to become a quote unquote regular guy because you're fighting against an unstoppable force, which is PEDs.
Well, and think about it, for him to be completely natural and only 0.04 seconds from qualifying,
Yeah, he's the guy. It should
he's
have
the
been
guy.
him.
Right.
And that's the frustrating thing. So as you guys are dating now, when do you guys decide to make this official? Like, do you get married in college? Do you guys get out of college and then enter your business life, or how do you do it?
So we dated for 4 years. We knew each other 2 years in college, and then 2 years after college, we were managing our careers. And so there was an agreement for us and our families that we would manage our careers and let our careers take us where they needed to go. I was working for a consulting company, joined and started working in the SAP program for that company, and was making great money. Within 6 weeks, I had a 25% pay increase. And then a year later, a 19% pay increase because I'm a performer. I was top 10% performer in that organization every year once I figured out the strategy for hitting metrics. And so I was performing, and then he was deploying in the Navy. And then at some point, his father asked him, what are you going to do about Nikki? Because you all won't be able to be just best friends for your whole life. And
Yeah.
she's going to take off in her career, and you're going to continue to do your thing. And there won't be any reason for you all to come back together unless you make a decision. And
Hmm.
so I remember him telling me that he didn't know, if he was going to ask me to marry him. And then his dad asked him, can you see your life without her? Yes or no? Or would you be okay if she were to meet someone else and go on
Hmm.
with her life without you being a part of it? Because you can't be best friends the way you are. And LaSalle decided, no, I want her to be a part of my life all the time. And so I've got to marry her. And so we got married. We were young. I was 24 and he was 25 years old.
Which obviously ends up being a great decision. It's the same kind of thing that happened to me where my parents are like, she's not going to be here forever. Like you can't just drag your feet through an entire life. And that's what we do as guys a little bit. We're like, well, we're comfortable here right
Yeah.
now and
Hmm.
everything seems fine, but especially with deployments, that's got to be tough because the statistics aren't great there for couples who try to survive deployments.
That's right. Yeah.
But
And
you
you're
did
gone
it.
6 months. It's six
Mhm.
months at a time. And you may or may not be able to talk on the phone, and I was traveling for my job, and I was working 60 hours a week because that's how I worked. Um,
Mhm. So
so
that's
yeah, it would have been
trust.
tough.
You're going on trust alone at that point, right? Because you're not allowed to talk on the phone. He can't reassure you from a distance. And now it's not in a time like now where everything is instant gratification and a phone is just stimulating us on repeat. So you're a little more conditioned for it, but that had to have been a tough time for you.
Yeah, absolutely, because there would be weeks where we wouldn't speak, and I'm just praying that he's okay and praying that we're okay. And I relied a lot on my friends. My friends were really good to me during that time, kept me busy, but I also worked 60 hours a week, which
Hmm.
helped. And so, yeah, there were times he said one time we did get into a little bit of an argument, and he said that phone bill cost him like $600 because, it was a per minute charge then. And he said that was his second. reason why he said we just need to get married because he said it was too expensive to argue and with all these unsure conversations. And he said if
Hmm.
I need her to be sure that I love her and that there is no one else for me. So
And those phone calls, they're important. My brother did the same thing, a long distance relationship, and we always used to joke that they would buy so many calling cards. He used to be able to buy like a sheet of calling cards. And we always said to him, it's like, you look like an international criminal with the amount of calling cards that you purchase at the local mini mart. But
oh,
they were in love and they're still married 20 plus years later. So I
that's
think
so
that
good.
when you know. And that's kind of what you did there. I'm impressed. So, what year do you get married?
1998.
In '98. And how long is the honeymoon phase? Well, you're both grinding, working, building your careers. At what point do you guys entertain this idea of having kids?
Oh, we waited 5 years.
And so you're
Uh, be-
working in, you're building
yes,
your career for 5.
I did not I didn't know what motherhood would bring, but I I kn- I knew that it would be more than what I was working with, just trying to work through everything on my own. And like I said, I worked a ton of hours a week. I traveled all the time. And so we waited 5 years because I had two goals at the time. One, I wanted to reach a certain level in the consulting company that I was working for before I made any changes in my life. I wanted to uh, be certain that it was called senior manager, which was a year away from we called partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also wanted to save up a year's worth of my salary in cash, so that if anything were to ever happen in our life, that we could still live and not change our lifestyle. And so those were my two goals. Those were my drivers. And then we got pregnant.
So when you guys, was that a conscious decision at that point, or were you was it kind of like we're no longer chasing the corporate goal because we got pregnant?
Oh, well, no, I plan to continue to work. So
But
I had
did you plan on having kids that early, or
so I we were in a stage where we were okay with it, but it was never like some couples, they make a plan and they say, "Would by this time," and all the things. We didn't do that. It was okay. We're at a place now where if it happens, then it's okay.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been through both. I've been through the one where it's a plan and there's a lot of pressure on me, and I'm like, "What? This is something I thought that I wanted all the time, and I don't. This is a lot." And so there's that version, and then the other version, which I was kind of alluding to, is the not so planned. But I actually corrected a friend of mine at the out at a soccer field over the weekend who said was comparing one of my kids to her kid and said, "Well, that's my accident," and I said, That's your surprise."
Yeah.
Because it's a different look at it, because once they're here, they're the miracle, right? And so accidents, great things do accidentally happen, but usually they involve an insurance claim. So I would prefer to call it a surprise.
Yeah. And we're adults. I mean, we know what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. We read the book. They teach you early. Um, So when you do finally you get pregnant with your first child, which is going to be a daughter, did you know that ahead of time, or did that just come on delivery day, knowing that you had a little girl?
no, we knew ahead of time. And actually, her name is Sydney because when my husband stopped running and decided to no longer pursue his Olympic dreams, it was the year of the Sydney Olympics.
Oh,
And so we agreed that he could name the first child Sydney in a commemoration of that change of life where he decided he was going to devote his time and efforts towards his family.
that's cool.
So, yeah, so we had her, and then 18 months later, we had my son, LaSalle.
That's really cool. So when you had your first baby, so you said 18 months later, is that what you said? Oh, so they're close in age. Now, my kids are
Very close.
2 years apart, the two oldest, and then the surprise is quite a bit younger. I got a 10, an 8, and a 2-year-old. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
but it is nice to have them kind of close together like you did there because, and this didn't work out for us, but it's supposed to be like that season of your life, like where you do all that and then you're not supposed to have to anymore. But you actually, you get dealt a few curveballs along the way, right? So with your, and it's two different ways for you. Tell us what it was like, what Sydney was like as a kid and kind of like her progression.
Sure. So with Sydney, at 18 months, I was going to take her to a Mother's Day Out program, super excited that I found an inexpensive solution to childcare. And, the little pretend kitchen, those pretend kitchen devices, right? They're plastic,
Yeah.
right? She walks over to it and she puts her hands underneath the sink and she keeps trying to turn the sink on. And then she's looking at me through the window of this Mother's Day Out and going like this. She's 18 months old. Like, and I'm telling her, pretend, pretend. And she's like, and then she just sat down. She's like, and so I went and picked her up and I said, what's going on? She said, don't work. I was like, oh my gosh, pretend. Why? And so that's when I knew, okay, she's a little different. Thought she thinks differently. So I took her to
Mm-hmm.
another preschool that was much more expensive. And she walks over to the sink that works, turns it on, the water comes out, and she looks at me and does this. She's 18 months, right? And so then at that preschool, her teacher came to me when she's about 24 months and said, listen, she cries all day. And I said, why? And she said, because I can't keep her stimulated. She's the kind of kid who wants a calculator in her hand all the time. And I just can't keep her stimulated. And she said, you've got to find a place that has more going on. I was like, okay. So I learned quickly that she
She's
was
advanced.
we call her our accelerator. So when we wanted to be smooth and coast through this childhood, she made us run fast. She was our accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
Everything she's done has been early, right? And so she's been in private school the whole time because we had to find private schools that were accelerated but allowed her to still be a kid. And so she was in private preschool, private elementary, private middle school, went to a Montessori school, and then a private high school. And now she's in it's called a BA MD program. So it's phenomenal. At age 17, she was accepted into this program where you earn your undergraduate degree and you're auto accepted into the med school.
Oh, wow.
So there's a 1.9% acceptance rate at this university she's at. And she got in. And so we're thrilled because now she can fulfill her dreams of being a physician, potentially a surgeon. But she was auto accepted at age 17.
Which is great. I mean, I'm glad that you made the extra effort and because where the story goes from here is I wish for you partially that, you get the easy road somewhere, because even though she's brilliant and she's going to be a doctor and all these things, you had to pay more attention, make sure that it's almost an incubation of, because kids are cruel too. They don't understand, like, they don't like if you're different. So if you're brilliant or you're smart or well spoken, that might also be considered too different from them, and then they push you down. So
That's right. That's exactly right. That's why we had to put her in these environments where everyone had that brilliance. And it
Mhm.
took work. It took a lot of work.
Now you
Yeah.
put in work there, but you put in another kind of work here when your son is born 18 months later,
Yes.
LaSalle the fourth. Now he shares a name with dad, so I might have to like over explain a little bit if I've got them both in the same story. But
Yes.
he was born 18 months later, and explain to me that process just a tiny bit. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by the Stafford Hills Club And if you've never come here and taken one of their classes, you really should do so. Their instructors are really good. I took the Pilates reformer class here, and she made me feel like I could be comfortable in the room. Let's get it right, though. I've got a lot to learn when it comes to Pilates, but that's how you do it. You just got to show up and give it your best right here at Stafford Hills. They make you feel comfortable, and it's a family environment, not just being able to bring your family here, but also the people together feel like a family. Check out everything to offer at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you for half off your initiation.
Ooh, yeah. So when LaSalle was born, my world changed and stays in this state of change every moment. It's hard to describe in words, but when he was born, he was in the NICU, and there's other babies in the NICU, so I thought we were fine. But by day 9, I started to wonder, where were we headed? But my sacrifice had already begun. And so what I mean by that is he's born, he's taken to the NICU. With my daughter, I was able to stay in the same room with her until we both left hospital. With him, we were separated because they found a hole in his heart. So it's a VSD repair was needed, and they couldn't do it at the time. When you're a baby, your heart is, I don't know if you could see it, but it's like the size of your pinky
Mm-hmm.
tip. So they didn't want to touch that. And so I pleaded with my physician to find a reason for me to have to stay in the hospital as long as possible. But once day 4 hit, there was nothing else that he could write. So I left, but I had made up in my mind that I was going to breastfeed. And I couldn't drive because I had a C-section. And my husband needed to work. And so I was home, and this was before the days of Uber, Lyft, and all the things. So I called a cab every 3 hours to take me to the hospital so I could breastfeed and then drive me home and then back. So I did this all day to the point where the people at the NICU said, "Oh, he's fine. You don't need to come. Just stay home and rest." Well, I tried it, and then he was in the incubator. So no, I'm coming back every 3 hours. More days persisted to the point where the cab driver says, "Ma'am, I cannot charge you anymore for these trips. I'm coming to get you, and I'm taking you. I can't charge you anymore because now we're at day 9. And once the cab driver said, "I can't charge you anymore," something in my brain shifted, realized, okay, this isn't normal, right? Like, this isn't normal. But you
Yeah.
hear with me, I never think these, what some people would call tragedies or hardships, I never consider them as hard in the moment because
Mm-hmm.
I'm just motivated by getting the thing done. You know,
Yeah.
the mission was breastfeed this kid and get him home. That was the mission, right? So if I had to take a cab, you take a cab. And so finally I realized, okay, the cab driver doesn't want to pick me up anymore. I need to get home. So I asked the nurse and the attending physician if there was a way for me to buy the equipment that they were using at the hospital and put it at my house. Can I get it on eBay? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And so they realized how motivated I was to get my son home, and that I would go through whatever training I needed to go through to be able to keep him stable at home. And so they released him home. But then I had to get him to checkups very often so that they could continue to see him.
Yeah.
That's when I realized this life is going to be a different life.
Yeah, because it's not for a couple of weeks. This is a thing that's going to go on.
Right. He didn't have his open heart surgery until month 5. And I was still technically working, but the company that I worked for, because I was such a high performer, and I saved a lot of revenue for my customers and helped my company access a lot of profit.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of large teams. I mean, when I was 30 years old, I had 60 people on my team. So always a very high performer. They came to me and said they didn't want me to leave. They negotiated that they would pay me half of my salary for the year to stay home with him as long as I was accessible. That was unheard of back then, but they did that for me. And so that allowed me to have peace of mind and care for him for the year to get through the open heart surgery. But I also knew that things would be very different with me for him because with open heart surgery came blood transfusion. And uh, I didn't know this until then, but you can only donate a certain amount of blood per human for a transfusion. Well, I didn't want him to get community blood. So if anybody ever goes to the blood bank, you'll see people outside who get money for donating plasma. And it's not usually people, that have great lives who are standing in line to donate money for donate their plasma to be paid.
It's
And
kind of like
so
you
I
wouldn't want to put old oil in a car. Right. You want to, if you have a chance to put synthetic oil into it, then you're going to do that and try and, because you're trying to stack the deck, right? You're trying
Right.
to do everything in your power so he can fight for his health.
That's right. And so I had to petition. It was actually the first time I've gone before a board. I had to petition to the Blood and Tissue Board to allow them to let me take more blood product from my body than the normal allowance so that my blood product would be what was put in him.
Mm.
And they accepted and allowed me to donate. So I kept a spreadsheet of all the vials of blood and all the blood products. And so it was me and a school principal who had the correct blood type that we knew who donated. And that's when I realized, okay, now I'm sacrificing time, money, but I'm also having to literally petition to give my blood.
Yeah. And now, are you dealing with other side effects because you're crossing the line with the blood? Are you having a fatigue? Are you dealing with like an iron deficiency? Is there any side effects for you?
Drew, again, I've never thought about it until you were asking me these questions. And but my whole body composition changed. So now I can't eat certain foods. My whole body composition has changed completely. Little
Mm-hmm.
things like I can't eat chicken, red meat. I mean, just my everything about how my intake changed when I made that alteration in my blood flow.
Which isn't that amazing, and that's probably why it's the board has to say yes, because it's like a pick your poison thing. Like, well, we want to save the boy, but we don't want to hurt the mom, and they just kind of have to make a decision. But I think when a mom is standing there wide eyed and saying, kind of like you back at the mall, I got this, they kind of have to let you go.
Yeah, and they could tell that it didn't matter to me what changed with me. It would have hurt me more to not know that I've done everything I could do for him.
Mm-hmm. And you would continue to do that because you go through some wild stuff with him. So it's not just the open heart surgery. You have a bunch more procedures, like a lot of procedures, lots of specialists. Just kind of the overview.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
So we've been to the OR 30 times. We've been to the OR so much so that now they have me scrub in. I put on everything and I go in with him so that I can help put him down before
Wow.
anesthesia comes, to the point where my head hurts because I'm lying next to him while the mask comes with the anesthesia. And so I have to get myself back together afterwards because now I'm kind of dazed.
Yeah, you're
But
feeling like
yeah,
it's college again. You got to take a deep breath, get back in the game.
so yeah, 30 OR visits. We would have therapies 3 times a week. So I did the math. It was like 2,800 therapy sessions that we've been through for speech, OT. So speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, auditory therapy, vision therapy, every therapy, there's play therapy, all the therapies you could think of.
So did he also, you mentioned to me before, did he have an issue with his teeth?
Yeah, he's never lost a tooth on its own. So every tooth that he's lost, we'd go to the OR to get it extracted. And then it's just a progressive issue because then he ended up with a cyst in his
Yeah.
gum that had to be removed and biopsied. He's had a cyst on his eardrum where they had to remove the cyst from his eardrum, reconstruct his eardrum. Um, so he has two cochlear bajas right now, and we're waiting to get implants for his hearing. Um, yeah, I always go head to toe,
Yeah.
in terms of all the procedures that he's had in his life. If you meet him, he's a pretty cool kid, and he doesn't know anything different. But yeah, the nurses. There have been times where I have a spreadsheet for information that I need about the procedure, and the nurses have been really kind. They'll take my spreadsheet into the OR with them and check off my questions and bring it
Oh,
back out
nice.
to me so
Well,
that I'm
that's
clear.
awesome.
Hmm.
I- It's it's a thing, as a parent of three kids myself, it's the thing that you dread the most is when something's happening with their health. Were there times for you, because you are the strong one, you're the face of it's okay, because if you break down, then that just goes right down the line. Were there times that you would dip away and have to take time for yourself to scream it out, to, shake your fist at whatever it is, whether it's the odds or, a higher power, or whatever? Was there why me times for you? Or why
Because
us, I guess is what I mean.
yeah, yeah. So when I think back, we never had a time where we would scream it out or have any of those types of emotions, because we have a consistent engagement, a consistent regiment of prayer daily, a consistent engagement with church. So, on a family calendar, things can go awry, right? There's
Mhm.
always activities, maybe this, maybe that. But I noticed the activity that stays consistent every Sunday, no matter what city we're in, it says church. And I know that has kept us consistent, and it helps us understand that all things will work together for good. I've grown so much as a human.
Mhm.
When I was an executive working in consulting, one of my projects, I didn't realize it until my husband explained to me what I did, but he's like, "No, Nick, you literally brought Wi-Fi into the homes of America." That was my project. I worked through the processes to get the Wi-Fi towers delivered to all the homes,
Mhm.
worked through the customer care solution, the IVR solution that everyone, when you call in and you push 1, 2, 3 to get to who you need to talk to get your tower working, I built all of that. And so I was, very type A personality. Now that I've had LaSalle, I am very appreciative of every human experience. And every person who comes into my life, I see them as a gift, and I seek to understand um, how I am trusted to be a part of their life. I
Mhm.
wasn't that way before. And so, yeah, we haven't really had moments of why me or what have I done to deserve this? None of that. It's, thank you for trusting me, God, with such an intricate gift of life, because it takes trust to have a person's life in your hands that has 30 surgeries.
Yeah.
Some families wouldn't tolerate it. We even moved. So we live now in Dallas, Texas, only because we found a school that will help him thrive into and transition into his adulthood, none of us have jobs in Dallas, Texas. There's no reason for us to be here except for him. So, but I think about that and say, dear God, like, gee, we're able to do that
Mm-hmm.
for him,
And that's
you
a good
know?
perspective too. And I think that faith is important because it's a lot easier to say what you just said in passing or in a fender bender or some little thing that happened that feels like the world or the weight is all on you. But when it's your kids they're so important. I mean, the very reason you live in Dallas and don't work in Dallas, they're so important, right? That it's got to be hard for a lot of people who face the adversity that you're faced to not get a little bit of snow in their goggles and to be like, why did I deserve this? I'm a good person. I hold doors for people. I care about people. Like, why me? And I think your perspective is impressive because, to say that it's not a why me, it's me because I can and because I'm capable of taking care of this child who is my angel. It's if it's the same thing with me, and my mom is a character a lot like you, where and it's not even always friends. Like my mom will spend a month at the hospital every day because one of her friends has gone down and she's not going to leave them there. And so it's that type of mentality which was taught to me as a child too. But I can't say that I'm perfect and that when something happens to my kid I don't get a little bummed, right? So I love your perspective and keeping it kind of out in front of you.
Yeah, so it's interesting because you remember you mentioned that full circle moment earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I often think about, okay, when I see, for example, my mom now, and when we were running a business, a family business, where my stepfather passed away, and so I became executive vice president. She's president, and we're running this business. She's a very different woman now than she was when she couldn't drive and couldn't have a job. And I would ask, okay, God, why did you have her in that position so long? When I was age 4, we both got our driver's license the same year when I was 16. I was like, God, why would you have her down like that? Right? Like that's how I would talk. But then I see the woman that she is now, super busy, doesn't stay home, just doesn't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized maybe God paused her life to raise me.
Yeah.
And so I've seen the proof that nothing happens on accident. If you believe your life is father filtered, then you know that you may not understand. Like I know I don't understand, but I know that there's something going on here that's for my good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just delusional or making it up. I have proof time and time and time again that I don't understand, but it's going to be for my good. My daughter had to go to all those appointments with us. And now she wants to be a physician and a surgeon. And if you were to ask her why, it's because she said, I saw the humans saving my brother's life
Mm-hmm.
every day. And I want to be able to do that for another family. And then if you ask her, well, would you like to be a physician that works in a clinic or a surgeon? She says, I feel like I want to be a surgeon because I want to use my hands to fix the problem. And I want families to know that there's someone who actually cares, who's trying to help save the life of their loved one, because she saw what we went through and the trust that we had to have in the physicians that were helping us. So you see what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah,
birthed a
absolutely.
whole
It's so funny you say
purpose.
that because I want to share something with you and I want you to share this with your daughter. I think, especially with her trajectory. My
Hmm.
grandfather grew up in Chicago in like the 30s or something, and him and his brothers went sledding in the snow one time. And this is no joke. A train ran over his foot and
Oh,
ripped it in half. So when I was a
oh,
kid, he had it would look like a half of a clothes iron for a foot. And, as a kid,
okay.
we were all frightened by it and like hope he
Yeah.
had his shoes on. But
Yeah.
that's not the moral of the story. The moral is that his brother carried him in the snow, bleeding 2 miles to a hospital that saved his life. And what he
Mhm.
saw in that hospital over the course of, because back then the medicine wasn't as advanced, he was there a long time as they tried to save his life. And he was
Mhm.
so awestruck by it that he actually dedicated his entire life to becoming a doctor, became a bone surgeon, became the head of
Mhm.
surgery in his hospital. And he's also a religious man. And he just believed that this was his calling and that he knew that they saved his life and he wanted to save lives. And that he did. He saved many lives. I don't remember a Christmas for many years where his beeper didn't go off and he didn't leave the room. And it would have
Well,
never
see, and that's the
happened.
multiplier, Drew.
It's the Fit for Radio podcast, and spring is here. And so are the deals at Motorsport Hillsboro. If you haven't been out there, it is the best spot to get everything for your off road adventures, where gas prices, they're on the rise. But the deals just keep getting sweeter, and the prices are dropping at Motorsport Hillsboro, where you can get a gas e bike while supplies last for up to 60% off. You're not going to find those deals anywhere else. And this is why people love Motorsport Hillsboro. And you want another one? How about $8,000 off MSRP if you're trying to get yourself into a Kawasaki Ridge side by side? So awesome and a lot of fun to play around in. And the amenities just go on for days. So, Motorsport Hillsboro, also your KO connection, where you'll get all the love that you won't find online, and the Northwest's best financing. It's Motorsport Hillsboro. Go see him today. And of course, stay rad, save gas.
So, like in your story, your grandfather is one person who unfortunately had to sacrifice. And then his brother now is saving the lives of many. So there's a multiplier there. And I've noticed that with my family, right? We've endured in many areas, but every lesson we learn, we give to others and it becomes a multiplier. And so that's why I say I know that, all things work together for good.
I think it's really cool that your daughter's doing that, because that also goes back to your son. He didn't choose these things that he's had to endure, but he will always be associated to that legacy of the lives that she will save.
Absolutely. And I've heard from the people that interact with him that he changes their hearts too.
Yeah, and I could totally see that. And he's a fighter. I was looking through some of the stats. Actually, your daughter sent over some stats, and she is very well written. And to just tell us a little bit about your son LaSalle and the fact that some of his achievements, because I thought that was pretty impressive as well. The things he's been able to do.
Yeah. I mean, so through the fact, even though he's hearing impaired, visually impaired, speech impaired, neurologically impaired, he he reads, he writes, and people are shocked by that. They are blown away with the fact that he can read. And I mean, literally yesterday we were in a circle group, and because my son and husband have the same name, he was sitting next to me, and they were calling on my husband to read something. And so they
Hmm.
said, LaSalle, you read. And my son read instead. And people were shocked. But he also, in Special Olympics, medalist, gold, silver, and platinum medalist. He's an avid golfer. The guys, when he's golfing, the grown men that golf with him say that they love golfing with him because of his sweet spirit, his calmness. And so when on the course, when other guys are getting all anxious, agitated, upset, my son stays very calm, cool, and collected. And he's a short in stature. He's like 5'2", and he just walks up calmly and hits. And these men say it teaches them that it doesn't require all of that angst to play the game, because he'll outdrive them sometimes
Yeah,
with
can
his
I
very
borrow him, and can he come out with my friends? Because I think they could take a chill
they
pill
need
at some
that.
point. Yeah, I'm bringing LaSalle just so we can get a little bit of peace out there, and
Yeah.
That's
And that's
amazing.
what he does. Yeah, he walks in and he calms the atmosphere because people say, "Wow, if this guy can calmly engage, w- why can't I?" Right?
Mhm.
He also this summer he had his job. He worked 80 hours at his job. And the women there, it was a fast food place. They said they miss him because he'll do work that others won't.
Yep.
Right? He's happy to work, right? So he would stand for 2 hours making salsa and putting salsa in containers where others who are fully able and capable complain about that type of job, right? And so his boss, she texted me actually last week and said, we miss him, right? And so this kid who has had 30 OR procedures, who should not be able to do much, is now, not at work because of school. And his boss is saying she misses him. It's just miraculous. And then he spent 2 weeks this summer on his own at a college campus, engaged in a program there. And now he's in a program where he's learning he's earning a culinary certificate at a junior college. So it's just
Nice.
phenomenal. But
That is
I'm
great.
his aide, so I have to be with him. But he's in this culinary program. I'm learning too. And I
You're
just
kind of
say,
like a sous chef. You be dicing up carrots in the corner as he's putting the soup together. I really do believe that cooking is a great thing to know, and so many people do not know how to cook. And so for him to have that, if he can play golf and he can do that, he's quite the catch.
right. It's funny you say that. We were at a wedding and a woman was dancing with him to be nice, right? But then
Yeah,
afterwards, she came over to me and she said, actually, he treated me better than many people I've been with.
exactly. And that's a testament to you guys as parents as well. And I wonder for you, and I just want to, before I move on, I want to say how
Sure.
amazing it is that your kids are so different, but you found a path. It was so different as in the road they were given, but you found a path for both of them to find success. And that's really impressive to me. My question for you though is that you know you do all this sacrifice. At what point do you do something for you? Like, are there things that you do? Because let's be honest, if you overexert to the point where you have a breakdown or something happened, it's you are such an important part of the ecosystem over there. Is there anything that you're doing consciously to try and keep yourself from self-destructing? Because you've been at it a while and there's no end in sight, but do you ever
Mm.
get a chance like, okay, I'm getting a pedicure or I'm going to me and my girls are going to go have a glass of wine. I don't know what you do for your recreation, but is there any time for you to be Nikki?
I walk. And so I have, especially in California, I had a group of friends that we met to walk all the time. I'll walk 3 to 5 miles, and that's a good walk for me. Um, and so that's helpful to me. I'm learning how to play mahjong, so I'm excited about that.
Nice.
And so there's a group of friends who'll text me and say, "Hey, we're going here. You coming?" And they know that I can't go long. My husband and I have never gone on a trip, on our own because there aren't many people who can stay with our kids. But they're older now, so we're hopeful. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I would say I walk and yeah, I guess I mostly walk and just spend time outdoors. That's what I do for me. My husband is getting on me because he says that there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's true. So 10 years ago, I had a car accident and it jacked my hip, and I don't care for it because I focus all my appointments on LaSalle. I don't make appointments for myself. And but this year my husband asked me to get a trainer. And so now I go 2 times a week to the gym with a trainer.
I'm glad you're being proactive. I'm glad that you're conscientious of it. And, I didn't always care about health and fitness and mental health so much. I was just like, I'm tough, I'll be fine. But now I try and do things as a preventative for, that I am, I had a kid when I was 42 years old. So
Mm,
the math on that says that you have got to be around for a while. So a lot of things happen there, but I'm proud of you for taking a little time because the walking is important. That's like mental health. I ride a Peloton in the morning before the kids get up, and that clears my anxieties in my head and I'll do it on a scenic background. So I'm like going through Austria or something, and it just gives me a time while I'm still thinking about them and my problems and my issues.
mhm,
It's not me imploding inside of them. I feel like it's a more constructive way to work through it and using my energy as a way to squash the anxiety bug.
mhm. Yeah, and I also read and, take notes and really reflect on my life and what God has for me in my life, and trying to make sure that I'm positioned properly so that I can help the people around me, and that gives me peace and joy, actually.
Do you,
And
and I'm guessing that this will be go back to faith as well, but do you have to fight that out of your mind that with the trajectory you were on, you were likely on your way to an early retirement if you so pleased, and that you probably would be in the middle of the Bahamas somewhere doing a thing? And do you have to push that? Because you're human. You say the right things, you do the right things, but you're a human being. Does that ever creep in?
yeah, it creeps in when I see my friends who have stayed in consulting. When because I was a high performer, when by age 35, I would have been up for partner. And people can Google this. In consulting, if you're a directing manager or partner, your salary range at that age is between 260 and 350. And my career counselor had a conversation with me to help me understand what I would walk away from if I left, and encouraged me to think twice about it. And so, years later, so if you were 35 making that,
You have
I
millions of dollars.
right. And so I do pause, Drew, and it makes me emotional sometimes when I think about the amount of money that I've walked away from that I could have made. Um, and it's not for the money, but it's the lifestyle. For example, when you have that type of access, if your insurance doesn't pay for a surgery, you could pay for it yourself. It wouldn't matter,
Mhm.
right?
Just get it done.
You just get it done. So those are the times when I say, man, uh, okay, God, I know you got us. But those are the times I pause, because I know that I've walked away from millions of dollars based on the performance level that I worked in then, and what I'm able to do now. I mean, it's very complex managing. We were on a meeting for a school district last week for services. There were 17 people on that Teams call, and I'm managing that conversation. They've sent me a 51-page document to review, and then there's 17 people that work for the school district on that call, and I'm working through that with LaSalle um engaged at the same time. I'm only able to do that because I was an executive, right? No one
Mhm.
else would have been able to manage working through a 51-page legal document and 17 people on the call. So I know what I'm capable of. And so those are the times when I pause and say, golly, God, I know you got us. And I'm
Mhm.
waiting for the time where we're able to maneuver a little bit more financially, because I know what I would have been capable of.
Yeah, and it is tough, because for me, I'm in kind of the same boat where you look at the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but then it doesn't. You never know that it's going to end positive. Like money is one thing. Love, don't need me to tell you this, is way more important. But it's like I just pivoted recently in my career and going from making a pretty good amount of money to now being self-employed, and you're looking at these
Mm,
kids and there's the panic of what if this, and honestly 3 weeks ago my furnace went kaput. I had to buy a new furnace, and I'm just thinking like this, none of this is ideal. Like
right.
this isn't what I asked for, but at the same time, in perspective, I could look at someone like you and be like, okay, I'm sitting here worried because maybe my middle kid doesn't want to sit still or threw a fit in a park, or another one of my kids doesn't want to eat the fish on her plate. And you think that, and as a parent, sometimes you just get overwhelmed by stuff that isn't that big of a deal. And to look at somebody like you who has done it gracefully and is prepared for the future of it too, which is, some people get out of murky water and it's like one more jab and they're going down, and I don't
Mm,
see that from you. I see that you're like, bring it, I've got this. And what I want for you is I want you to get both. I want you to be able to do what you're doing to support your family. And I know how important it is. That's not lost on me, but you're also super talented, and like
mhm.
just some of the things
Thank you.
that you're continuing to do while you're doing all the other things. So some people would think that we just had this whole conversation and that you just do that and that's it. But that's not the deal. Like you do so many
True.
other things. And
True.
just for example, I'm just going to read off some of these things and tell me if these are wrong. Serves on the board of the Big Heart Philanthropy. Um, you also Junior League chairs the Careful Study of Children Task Force for Jack and Jill of America in your region. Helped update curriculum for higher education institutions for infusing AI, and also hosted a business accelerator AI pop up now, which is wild to me because when you were doing all of your training, it was way before AI. So you're being like in an innovative position now while looking after your son and doing all of these things.
Yes, I love AI. I'm an AI advocate. It helps me in my day
Hmm.
tremendously. Um, I use it. Some people just say it because it's a buzzword. No, for me, it's a lifeline. Truly a lifeline. When I'm preparing for like Careful Study of Children Task Force, where we have thousands of students. So we're doing a study on teens and what helps them in their day and how parents need to show up for their teens to help their teens live lives where they feel seen, heard, and loved.
Hmm.
When I'm preparing for those meetings or for those engagements, I use tools to um, help me with my slides, help me with my scripts, help me with my editing of the videos, just all the things. And that helps me with efficiencies in my time. So I really do appreciate AI and the tools that it brings for me. So yeah, I do that, and I also for years I led the coding collaborative, and so we had hundreds of kids come through our coding classes so that we could help set them up for success. And we did that for free because it was just the right thing to do. Um, and LaSalle was allowed to code. My daughter was allowed to code, and so we did it because it was the right thing to do.
That's awesome. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by the Stafford Hills Club. And when you come here, you will notice the difference. The sense of community is amazing. People smiling, happy. They hold the door for you around here. And of course, it's one of those clubs that when you sign up, they want you to come back. They want you to be happy and healthy because then we can all be together for a long time. Check out all the amenities and everything they have to offer at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you and get half off your initiation. Now, I don't think that anybody could argue that that you don't check all the boxes. You're outgoing, you're a fierce, strong, loving mother, which I think is such an important attribute in a person. I feel like I married one of those. I feel like my mother is one of those people, and they're necessary in this life because fierce love is what I like to call it. And you seem to be that. And I know that I don't need to ask you, questions about family anymore because I know that you will always be there for them. You will help guide that path for all three of your people and your extended family. But what is, like, if I were to have you back on in a couple of years, and I were to ask you, what's the ideal situation for you,
Mm.
like where you're spending some of your energy, your brain power, your leadership skills, while still being able to manage the things that you need to oversee with the family? What does that look like?
Well, it's a hard question, Drew, because I've spent so much of my life helping others reach their purpose that I've not concerned myself with my own. And so it's a tough question. If I if I could rule the world and do it all, I would love to get a PhD in something related to the human factor of technology, how I've noticed the human experience change over time with the infusion of technology in our lives. So I'd love to be able to create content related to that. And when I say content, I don't mean social media. I mean like get a PhD in that. Um, I don't know if that would ever be possible because I don't know if I would have the time. I usually spend all my time with helping others in their purpose. If my dreams came true, I would be a pilot. That's what I would really
You want
wish
to
I could do.
fly.
Yeah,
Have you flown a plane before, or
I
how?
have. Yeah. So, when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a flight attendant because that's what I saw. People that looked like me were flight attendants, right? And over time, I realized I didn't want to just serve people drinks in the aisles.
Hmm.
Some people are okay with that, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to maybe be able to go where I wanted to go and have my own plane. Um, and you have to be the pilot to do that, or you got to pay for a pilot. So I wish I could be a pilot. So my husband, he's actually gotten me three lessons. The first lesson, I was a passenger and just learning how to understand the traffic. The second lesson, I took off, I flew, and I landed.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, that was in Northern California. They're more trusting, I guess. And then 2 years a year ago, I flew again, and so I wish I could be a pilot. I wish I could get my PhD. But at the end of the day, if I could spend my time truly helping people reach their full potential, that brings me joy. It really brings me joy when I meet someone and I can tell that they are not operating in all of the gifts that they've been given. If I can help them move from there to a place where they're operating in the fullness of who they're called to be, that brings me joy.
So hopefully we can get a combination of those things. You can do that and bring them joy, and you can fly on the weekends, and everybody can get their cake and eat it too. And I will tell
Yep.
you, I worked with a guy. He had a great job in radio. He was the program director, which is the boss of like the biggest top 40 station in both Seattle and Portland. And one
Mm,
day they do what they do in radio, and they just cut his cord. And you know what he
mm.
did? He went to flight school. And he went and he did all of his hours, and his wife supported his change, even though it was a completely frightening time. And he
Yes.
went through all of it, and now he is a pilot for Alaska. And so
Oh
you
my
can,
gosh, I'd love to meet him.
oh, he's a great guy. And he also, in the middle of that, got a cancer diagnosis, had to
Oh,
stop. So he was the pilot, got the job, got the
uh-huh.
diagnosis. And what people don't know is when you can't fly, you lose your hours, and then you are no longer qualified to fly. And so he had to
Right.
go back and do it again. And now he's in remission and is back as a pilot and a true inspiration. So
Oh
I
my
will.
goodness.
I'll let you know more about his story another time. But it's that type of thing. Never say never, and you have that type of mentality. And I'm so glad that we were able to find the time for you and I to sit down. And I feel like I'm going back into my parenting when I get home a little stronger, a little more fierce, and I got this.
You got it. You got it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Drew. I appreciate you.
You got it. We are here at the Stafford Hills Club, as we are all the time, where work meets play. Check them out, staffordhills.com.